WBAP. I am your host, James Parker. Let's have a serious chat here about this whole better safe than sorry garbage that I think we've taken this too far. And this shows up all over our society in 2025 here. And I'm going to focus on this tsunami thing, but this sort of mindset counts for helicopter parenting and scaring the crap out of kids about, leaving the front yard because it's just so full of predators or whatnot. This same mindset could be applied to the gun control argument. It saves one life. We gotta have a right to shut up. This better safe than sorry is not good. And in some ways, it could be worse than just being reckless. Better safe than sorry. The tsunami warnings that were on my phone last night, and now I have the alerts turned off. But if I go into apps, if I go to Facebook, if I go to X, if I go to Instagram, if I go to any of these platforms, I am subscribed. I do follow a bunch of news accounts, and they were just all super duper hyped up about this tsunami last night. And you were being told, if you were paying attention to your phone, that there's been tsunami warnings issued all up and down the West Coast, y'all. There's big tsunami warning in Hawaii. Look at the traffic. They're all trying to get to higher ground. Now, not all tsunami warnings are wrong. I remember there's a big bad tsunami in Indonesia in like 2007 or something, like 2004. Is that when that was? That makes sense. There was the Fukushima. There was a tsunami that happened in Japan that knocked out that nuclear facility. So there is such thing as a legit tsunami warning. But I got to tell you, last night seemed to be overhyped. Before I play you some of the audio here that just came down, and I'm not blaming WFAA. I'm not blaming any local news outlet. They are only passing along the hyperbole and the sensational reporting that they're getting. I do not blame them one bit. But when I tell you what the result of the tsunami was just a few hours after this audio I'm about to play for you, you're going to have a hard time not crashing your car into the nearest barrier. Because, look, to be fair, it was one of the world's strongest earthquakes. There's only a few earthquakes ever measured that are stronger. 8.8 magnitude. Okay. That sounds like there could be big tsunami waves. You can't blame them for getting a little worked up here. But what did it result in? After all these cars jammed the highways in Russia, in Japan, in Hawaii, what happened? Well, the Oregon Department of Emergency Management said on Facebook that small tsunami waves were expected along the coast starting around 11:40 p.m. local time. That was last night. And the heights between 1 to 2 feet. 1 to 2 feet! Oh my God! We're all going to die! Stop it. Stop it. When you look at the results of these tsunamis and what happened when they hit land, they're saying just ridiculous things. They were calling that a tsunami wave. It's a small tsunami wave. No, 1 to 2 feet. You can't call it a tsunami wave anymore. I make a bigger wave when I do a cannonball in the deep end of my sister's pool. Tsunami wave. Stop it. You're embarrassing. So there's people out there who will say, well, no harm, no foul, James. At least no one got hurt. Why? What's your complaint here? Well, how many people had their lives disrupted? How many people jumped in their cars and they had to go stand in the highway and highways were blocked? There might have been someone who had a heart attack and the ambulance couldn't get through to save their life because of all the fake traffic that was overhyped that shouldn't have happened. There's all these people who, that there's time and resources and opportunity cost to all of this. It wasn't a harmless, well, it's just an alert and we wanted to be better safe than sorry. But the real pain isn't going to be seen here. When you have false alarms like this, people start ignoring evacuation orders. That's one of the problems that happened in Katrina, is they tell you to evacuate. None of the storms ever turn out to be worth a, diddly. And so the one time you need to evacuate, no one listens because the boy had cried wolf too many times. Now that you know the waves that were hitting Oregon, 1 to 2 feet. What about the waves that were hitting Los Angeles? Oh, it was like 8 inches tall. It was a catastrophe. Listen to how this was reported. And again, I'm going to say this again because I don't want to get any emails about this. I am not blaming WFAA. They are just passing along information that they reasonably believe is true. Whoever's coming up with these hyped up stories and these little scary tactics to get news to report on it, we need to have a chat with those people. But this was last night, right before it happened.
Breaking news tonight. A powerful earthquake has triggered tsunami warnings and watches all across the world, including in parts of the U.S.
So here is a better look at where this is all happening tonight. The 8.8 magnitude earthquake struck Russia earlier. Japan is under a tsunami warning, as is the entire state of Hawaii. The entire West Coast and part of Alaska are all under watches right now.
Cole Sullivan is following the latest from our newsroom. And Cole, there is a lot of information coming in right now.
And Teresa, the bottom line is this was one of the world's strongest earthquakes on record. And that's what's triggered all these tsunami alerts. It happened off the coast of Russia, and now parts of the West Coast of the United States are under a tsunami watch. This is a picture from Japan, a live picture where the first waves have already hit. The Japan Meteorological Agency says the waves are only about a foot high, but we talked about just how big this earthquake is. For comparison,
hang on.
This
Before
was
we
an
get to that,
8.8 magnitude.
let me stop you there, Scooter. You're calling a tsunami wave 1 foot tall? You can't call it a tsunami wave if it's only 1 foot tall. If it's big enough, if it's small enough to fit in my bathtub, it's not a tsunami. How about that? If you get bigger waves in the shallow end of the pool after Uncle James does a cannonball, it's not. Stop calling it a tsunami. What the hell are we having warnings for 1 foot waves? Don't 1 foot waves hit the beach every night? Like, is this one of the most overhyped stories possible? 1 to 2 feet waves. I figured that was normal. I've been to Galveston. Yeah, I've seen waves on just a regular old, what was last night? Tuesday night. How, would you even know there was a tsunami coming if you people didn't tell us? Would anyone on the beach have noticed? You have the Oregon Department of Emergency Management urge people to stay away from the beaches, the harbors, and the marinas, to remain in a safe location away from the coast until the advisory is lifted. Shut up. A 1 foot wave. I've got to stay away from the beach from a normal sized wave. It's this overhyping that it's going to get people killed. You don't cry wolf all the time. If you do this, your warnings will mean nothing. One day there's going to be a real tsunami, and the people that were evacuating last night aren't going to do it again because you have lied to their face and overhyped it so many times. This is getting people killed. And think about Kerrville. People want to put up more sirens everywhere and have them go off more often. Why? So we can ignore them? That's not smart. We've gone way too far in the better safe than sorry. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I'm going to try and make the case coming up that better safe than sorry can be destructive. I'm James Parker on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. I am your host, James Parker. You know, this overhyped tsunami warning that happened last night is a bad sign that we're not learning lessons that we should be learning. Because the case I'm making here is too much warning can be just as bad as too little warning. What's the point of having a warning system if you're going to blare the sirens so much that they get ignored? And it's not just me being frustrated. You're going to get people killed. We're going to spend all this money, all this effort, all these resources and public awareness and attention. It's going to be paid to a system that y'all are going to ruin because you overhype stuff. 800-288-9227. Let me continue a little bit more with some of the coverage last night. Now, this is before the waves came and hit, and I'll just remind you how little the waves were.
Magnitude quake. The tsunami that set off the nuclear meltdown at Fukushima in Japan in 2011 was a 9.0. And that's the sound of the emergency sirens in Honolulu going off at this hour. The entire state of Hawaii is under a tsunami warning and could face damage, the National Weather Service says. We've heard from people stuck in gridlock traffic.
Let's talk what you hear the sirens, you hear the dire warnings. Sounds like the apocalypse is on its way. And the Alaskan communities that were hit, because they were closer to the origin of the earthquake, the 8.8 on the scale earthquake that hit last night and started the air quote tsunami. They got less than a foot above regular tide levels in the Aleutian Islands of Alaska. Less than a foot. In Japan, the highest I saw reported, 2 feet. Around Tokyo Bay, 5 hours after the quake, they had a giant tsunami wave of 8 inches. Yes. Now, I'm told 8 inches is absolutely gigantic, but I don't think that applies to tsunami waves. We've got to stop this, or we're wasting all this time and effort on these warning systems if you're going to overuse them like this. This is Scott in Little Elm. You're on WBAP.
Yeah, good afternoon. I was, they had me on the hook for just a little bit. They had the egghead on from USC on Fox last night for about 10 minutes saying that everything west of Las Vegas could be wiped out.
Shut up. I didn't see that.
Yeah, he was on for about 10 minutes. His head was, my head sort of looks like it. The guy they had on and I were both bald. His head was more shaped like an egg than mine is. And it's like, all right, you have my attention for about 10 minutes, but I was thinking the bigger problem would be what would they do about the flag? Do you realize how many flags they would have to change if we lost a state?
Oh well, I think we wouldn't take away their star. We would just the water would recede and California would return. I don't think even if it fell off the San Andreas Fault, most of California would still be there. So I don't think you would lose their star, but that would be a pain. We would probably just have to annex Puerto Rico or something to even it out.
Well, okay, I guess that's a possibility, but these things are getting more and more ridiculous. I think it was about 10 years ago, all the meteors that were supposed to destroy the Earth, and then before that it was Y2K, and I forget what it was before that. But
it was the ozone hole before that. It was acid rain before that. It was global cooling before that. It never ends. They're always trying to scare the crap out of you.
Global warming hoax. But this is like the 6th or 7th possible life-ending event that basically never materialized to, like what you said, an 8-inch wave. Okay. All right, woo. I'm out. Y'all have a good day.
All right. Hey, great call, Scott. Thank you very much, sir. This is Ron in Stephenville. You're on WBAP.
Hey, James.
Hey, Ron.
I grew up in Southern California as a surfer, and we used to always go to a website called Surfline that we could look at the buoys that are out in the Pacific Ocean, and we could see what the swells are doing live. So we could determine where we were going to go surfing for the day. So the fact that they are talking about when the wave actually hits the coast, NORA has the systems where you can watch the swells thousands of miles out to sea. So I don't understand how they're like going, well, we're going to have a tsunami when they can tell thousands of miles out to sea that there's no waves.
Well,
It makes no sense.
yes, but
that they
if you
do that.
carry this out to its full conclusion, you should reach the same end of the destination I reach. Why do we have government warning systems anyway? They have no incentive to get it right. They have no consequences if they get it wrong. And if they're going to overdo it like this, they're going to get people killed. You know who's more accurate
Right.
when it comes to these meteorological predictions? We talked about this recently. Waffle House. Waffle House's meteorologist far more accurate than National Weather Service on whether or not you should shut down or what's going to be hardest hit or what utilities are going to be affected.
The only problem with Waffle House is in California there are none. So they don't have anybody that has a brain.
Well, you're still going to have you're still going to have a lot of
the last guy. Yeah. With the egghead telling everybody that everything lies west of Las Vegas. Nobody was even thinking about the fact that all the mountains separating California from Arizona are 8 to 10,000 feet tall. So what kind of tsunami would you have that could wipe out all of the high desert?
Well, I don't think he's correct in his prediction, but it seems like that's what would stop it and why it wouldn't go further in.
Yeah,
I guess is their thought process there.
So yeah, I've never believed any of these things that they have, and we used to use the buoy systems to figure out where to go surfing for the day, where the biggest waves are going to be, because of the direction and the size of the swells of the buoys, thousands of miles out to sea.
Well, I also want people to remember in future James shows when others outlets are freaking out about some situation, I'm like, meh, it's a whatever to me. This is why I'm so dismissive of other sensational stories. It's because I see too much of this.
Yep.
All right. Well, another great call. Thank you very much. That's Ron in Stephenville. If you want to put in your 2 cents on the overhyping of natural disasters and other warnings too, 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Like these people that call the cops on parents for letting their kid go to the park by themselves. Oh, it's dangerous out there. No, it's not really that dangerous. You're not being a rational human being, and your overhyped, overprotective helicopter parent instincts are not making the world a better place. They're making the world a worse place. You know why so many kids have anxiety? Much more so than previous generations, because we taught them it's too dangerous to even walk outside of their front yard. The world is so dangerous and full of evil people who are just going to snatch you up and do horrible things to you. You're not even allowed to go to the end of the block without your parents hanging over you. 800-288-9227. If you feel like jumping in on that one. I don't know. The tsunami warnings just really rubbed me the wrong way last night. Coming up next on The James Show. Am I going to have to buy some American Eagle jeans? I think I am. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Well, hey there. Welcome to the James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. I am your host, James Parker. Did you get all those tsunami warnings on your phone last night? Did you see it on social media? I think it's a big deal. I think it's a big deal when they act like something huge is about to happen and it doesn't happen. I think it counts for a lot if the news gets stories wrong. I think it counts a lot if it's from a racial angle, if it's from an economic angle, or if it's from a natural disaster angle. In fact, I think it's dangerous. It's just as dangerous as not having any warning system at all as having one that no one trusts, no one believes in, one that makes you evacuate for a 1-foot wave. Oh, I'm sorry. You can't go swimming in the ocean. The ocean is closed. Government says you can't, walk into the ocean? Why? There's going to be 1-foot waves. Shut up. That's ridiculous. You're going to get people killed because there's going to be a time when people really need to evacuate and they're not going to listen to you because you intentionally lied to them so many times in the past. This is Dana and Anna. You're on WBAP.
Hey, James, my comment's more on general warning systems. Remember a few years ago when Hawaii had that nuclear warhead that was headed their way and everybody got a notification on their phone? And it wanted to be a false alarm.
Yeah.
Just total craziness. It's like a nanny society. We can't, there's too much going on to kind of keep us safe for what?
Yeah, well, that one, it was a human error boo-boo. This one doesn't even count as that. This is I guess they're well-intended experts. I don't think they did this with malicious intent, but the incentive structure is for them to holler as loud and get as much attention as possible. Because there's no downside to them being wrong. And so I think, the lesson we learn here is don't be scared to take this out of the hands of government and put it back in the hands of the private sector. They will do a better job. They'll do it cheaper. They'll be a little more judicious. There will be negative consequences to them getting it wrong. And I think the government's just expressed in every industry that it's tried. It does a terrible, terrible job. And we've got to get him out of it.
Agreed. Love the show, man.
Well, thank you very much. Nice guy. All right, let's go to Paul and Hurst. You're next up on WBAP. Paul and Hurst,
Hello.
go.
Yes. So what I know about tsunamis, and I guess I got it right, but the way I understood it was, as it's way out in the ocean, hundreds of thousands of miles, that wave is moving like 500 miles per hour. I mean, ships won't even know it, and it's not very tall. It's like what you're saying, a foot. And it goes so fast that ships won't even know it. But as it approaches land, then it slows down, and it starts building a wall of water. But correct me if I misunderstood, but that's the way I interpreted it.
Well, for the big tall ones that happen, they go really fast, and there's a weird sort of drawback of water that we've all seen before the big wave actually comes in. And I'm not saying you're wrong in the mechanics of what happened here. It's just that it was so small, and the predictions were so far separated from what really happened when the wave got there, because the way they were making it sound like this is one of the strongest earthquakes ever measured. People are running to the high ground in Japan and Hawaii and Midway. It's scheduled to slam against the western coast of the United States about midnight. And they got 8 inches, bro. 8 inches.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Well, they're going to get people killed.
My call.
Yeah. And hey, thanks for calling in. I appreciate it. I'm glad we're all being so mature about this because I don't know. Sometimes I do a topic like this and people call in. They're like, you're crazy. We can't end the government warning systems. And I don't know. Just people don't even give it a thought. They just reflexively are contrarian. This is Justin and Melissa. You're on WBAP.
Hey, I was going to tell you, with all the warnings and stuff and that tsunami, I got a buddy of mine trying to come back from Maui, and he said he was texting us last night and said that the airport shut down and they were forced to sleep in the terminal. And to make matters worse, whenever they woke up this morning, the only carrier, the name that's much like the country's name, was the only one that did not have people to do tickets for the flight, and they would not let them use their tickets from the previous day. So they had to start the process all over again, but they were waiting for people to show up to work for this one particular airline.
Well, it destroys people's lives whenever you do these false alarms. You know, I got really incensed by it for the brief time I had to live in New Orleans because anytime there was any hurricane or tropical storm, we're going to evacuate the whole town and no one can stay behind. You're risking your life. No one's going to come for you. And nothing would happen. It would rain pretty hard. It would take a few hours for the water pumps to drain because New Orleans has to drain manually. And for the few times that I did evacuate, I was so mad. It is expensive just taking off and going to another town or because you miss work. Some people have to get a hotel. I usually stayed with family because I would just come back to Texas. And it got to where I ignored all of them. And so I actually waited out some hurricanes I shouldn't have waited out, just sitting around. Try going 6 days without electricity in the middle of August. See how that works out. But no,
I hear you, man. I was down in Louisiana for that when it hit Homa a couple years back, and it was super creepy to show up out there help my niece, and nothing has power on. It's super dark at night.
There's no air conditioning. Yeah, but I know your story's true. I know your story's true because you pronounced Homa correctly. All right, if you got any comments on the overhyping of these natural disasters, but it's not just natural disasters. This is the same mindset of helicopter parents. This is the same mindset of, like, some guy fussed me because my girl was going around in a little child's toy scooter, like a little Power Wheel, but it was a scooter, and she wasn't wearing a helmet. He goes, "Oh, you sure that's safe?" I was like, dude, I just duded him. And he's a grown man. He's probably a little bit older than I am. Oh, you think that's safe? I'll tell you what's safe. Shut up. That's what's safe. That can't be the answer, though. Does this upset you as much as it upsets me, or are you just laughing at me right now? 800-288-9227. That, and I think I'm going to have to go to American Eagle this evening and get myself some new blue jeans. This is The James Show, News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. Here in the WBAP studios, we are in downtown Dallas at the American Airlines Center. And if I do a quick search for American Eagle stores or American Eagle jeans near me, I have quite a few options here. So I think I'm to the point of not only am I getting some American Eagle jeans, it's just a question of where. But before we get into that, let's take one more call on the tsunami warning. If you're just joining us, there was a big tsunami warning last night. A giant earthquake happened out in the Pacific Ocean, 8.8 on the Richter scale. There's only a handful of earthquakes bigger than that, but the hype around it made it sound like that Hawaii is about to get wiped off the map, and we're probably going to lose San Francisco and Los Angeles, and it's expected to slam against the West Coast sometime around midnight to 1 o'clock, depending on where you're at. And they ended up getting like 8 inches, maybe a foot. Maybe a real tall wave that hit Hawaii, 2 feet. So I'm tired of all these alerts. I'm tired of them being sensational and overhyped. And you're going to get to a point to where people just ignore them. And that's as bad as not having them at all. Marshall in Bedford, you're on WBAP.
I'd like to draw just one quick parallel. Same thing was with car alarms when they first came out. If you heard one going off, everybody was up in a stir. But now, if you hear one go off, everybody's just wishing they just shut the damn thing off.
Man, you know what? 7 points. That's a perfect comparison. Yeah, a touchdown. That's a full touchdown, extra point and everything. That's the perfect comparison. Yeah, because now car alarms are just a pain in the butt. I don't even know if they thwart crime.
Well, they don't. And when they go off, they'll keep going on forever because the person who owns that vehicle, they don't even shut it off. But the other thing I was going to say with the overreach is, like, say, a rainstorm. They'll break into the weather, and then they keep going over and over and over for, hours at a time. And you're talking about overreach, and that's the whole point.
Oh, man, especially on TV when you're trying to watch your show. And so
what the job of the weather people is to sell the weather. That's their job, is selling the weather.
Man, look, it's even worse than you think from behind the curtain over here, Marshall. We get so many warnings that are supposed to be emergencies that someone will check in on, whether it's Brad Barton or someone else in the news, and we don't pass them along because they are so flimsy and flippant. We don't want to erode our credibility or ruining the listening experience. Thank you very much, Marshall. All right, let's get back to this Sydney Sweeney deal. I would like for this to go away, but it's not going away. Here's Good Morning America talking about it yesterday.
Time to check the pulse. We begin with the backlash over a new ad campaign featuring actress Sydney Sweeney.
Yeah, the ads are for American Eagle, and the tagline is, Sydney Sweeney has great genes. Now, in one ad, the blonde-haired, blue-eyed actress talks about genes as in DNA being passed down from her parents.
The play on words is being compared to Nazi propaganda with racial undertones.
The pun, good genes, activates a troubling historical associations for this country. The American eugenics movement in its prime between like 1900 and 1940 weaponized the idea of good genes just to justify white supremacism.
Despite that backlash, American Eagle stock has been soaring.
See what he did there? The Eagle has been soaring in their stock. Well played, sir. You get a laugh on top of that. I want to get some jeans now. You know why? Because all the backlash against it, that just makes me want to buy them more. If you're going to be this crazy over the top, if you're going to be this attuned to perceived, invented, imagined dog whistles, I want to see this company succeed just because it'll make these people even more mad. Check out this viral video.
Don't forget.
Oh, wait. This lady is standing in front. She's in a mall. She's in front of an American Eagle store. And there's a beautiful picture of Sydney Sweeney and some good-looking jeans behind her.
Don't forget to boycott American Eagle.
No.
For their racist. They're racist online, talking about blue jeans and white people. Boycott American Eagle. Boycott the out of them. Boycott American Eagle. Do not buy them. And cancel this person, Miss Sweeney. Cancel for her being racist, for doing Nazi propaganda. Cancel American Eagle.
I have trouble with this because I want to find this woman and just get in front of her, and with no audience around, nobody recording it. So, try and get an honest answer out of her and go, lady, do you really think Sydney Sweeney is a Nazi? Do you really think this young lady thought, hey, I'm going to get this American Eagle jeans and I'm going to slip some Nazi propaganda into it? Or do you think American Eagle said, we're going to do some Nazi propaganda and we'll just rope in Sydney Sweeney? Do you think she's a dupe? Do you really think there's Nazis out there? Where are these Nazis? Are they in the room with you right now? Do you know the name Doja Cat? She has a couple of big songs. If you don't know her, your kids probably do. I'm kind of a fan, but here she is affecting a Southern accent. Pretty good, too. Probably more of a Georgia Southern accent than a Texas Southern accent. You know, that foghorn leghorn versus Matthew McConaughey. Yeah, it's kind of like that. But this is Doja Cat. Just imagine if Sydney Sweeney did her best black voice and mocking Doja Cat. Just imagine.
Genes are passed down from parents to offspring, often determining traits like hair color, personality, and even eye color. My genes are blue.
Now, I'm not offended by that. That's pretty good Southern accent she's doing. I don't know where she's from or if she grew up around that, but I thought she nailed it. I thought obviously she's making a racially angled joke, but I don't think it was racist necessarily. I think she's making fun of us, though. I don't think it worked. I mean, like I said, I'm not offended. But just imagine if the roles were reversed. What a sweet little Sydney Sweeney with her evil blonde hair and her evil blue eyes and her evil pale skin. What if she affected a stereotypical black voice and made fun of a Doja Cat quote? You think that would fly? You think that would be called racist? Of course. I told you she was a Nazi. But it's hilarious. And their reaction to fake racism, they give a racist reaction. It's adorable. Like, hey, I sure do hate people who are racist as I make a racist TikTok. Interesting move there, guys. Now I'm definitely getting some American Eagle jeans. All right, coming up next on the James Show, someone threw an adult toy on the court at a WNBA game. You'll hear the fun audio next. It's News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Well, hey there, fellow Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM, WBAP. I am your host, James Parker. Why do people send me this stuff? You know, the WNBA shouldn't be making this much news. The WNBA is supposed to be something that's kind of in the background and not talked about for the third time in the last week on the James Show. Now, they had their All-Star game last week, and they came out and they were wearing "Pay Us What You Owe Us" shirts. So we kind of had to talk about that. That was a beautiful economics lesson, and we all got a good giggle out of it. Ha, 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 ha. If anything, you should be cutting a check to the WNBA because y'all lose money. We all got it. We all knew the jokes that were coming. We enjoyed them anyway, tried to move on. And then people kept sending me the video of some girl getting her wig snatched during a game. Like, isn't that funny? No, that's not funny. You don't see wigs getting snatched before? So I don't know where you people look. I'm not a fan of the WNBA. I haven't watched one complete game. I probably never will. But I don't wish it to die. I don't wish it to be a failure. I mean, that'd be kind of nice if girls, if they cared enough about basketball to support a league, cool. Now, if they don't care enough to support their own league after 20 years of trying and it has to be continually subsidized by the NBA, hey, that's the NBA's choice. If they want to buy this sort of, political correct shield against criticism, let them do it. It's a whatever. I'm indifferent to the WNBA. I have apathy, not antipathy. But I know people are going to start sending me this probably about right now, so I might as well get it out of the way. Someone threw an adult toy on the court during a game. Now, you're hearing the announcers talk about this, not knowing what it is. You can't see. It's not that big. So you see this green thing. It's like a neon green plastic thing that kind of bounces around. And yeah, it looks a little oblong, but you can't tell that it's a that. But listen to them when they find out. They're just so disgusted by the fact of it's an adult toy.
Hayes gets blocked by Maya Caldwell. Something flies on the court, actually, from the crowd. The officials will say they will continue play as that goes off the fingertips of the Valkyries.
And you can see the object, the block right there. And the object comes, that green thing bounces, and it goes to the sideline. We're not exactly we're not sure where it came from.
No room for any of that type of activity.
Yeah, and no one's picked the object up yet. You guys, oh my gosh, okay.
Oh my goodness.
Okay. Inappropriate.
Oh,
get him out of here, whoever it is.
Get him out of here. Kick him out. That is so inappropriate. Do you people have no sense of humor? Because if that was me, or if that was any other guy, like one of the guys from The Ticket or whatever, you'd have to stop us from giggling. We'd be over there laughing like little children. We would be like, oh, this is inappropriate. Get them out of here. Whoever did this, they need to leave immediately. Plus, you're not thinking like a good little capitalist pig. Your worldview has got you just digging around in your own belly button so hard that you're missing a huge marketing opportunity. So what you're seeing there is an adult toy that's meant to replace the organs of someone who's not allowed to play in the WNBA. See how gracefully I did that? But what constituency is better for the toy industry? Look, I know it's kind of stereotypical, but it's also just pragmatic and functional. What group needs those toys more than other groups? God, it's about as nice as I can say, but you know what I'm getting at, right? Oh, this is totally inappropriate. I don't know. I think of all the constituencies in America that could be divided up into various ways, that might be the most appropriate thing to be thrown on the court. What do you think, that they didn't know what that was at the WNBA? You don't think every single one of them had... Let's not get myself in trouble. But think about it like this. Remember just a couple weeks ago or a couple days ago, Deion Sanders has the press conference and he says, I now depend on Depends. And I bet you thought this. I thought this. Garrett even thought this, and he's slow. We're like, oh, wouldn't that be a great marketing opportunity for Depends? I bet you their sales are going to go up. They should bring Dion on as a spokesman, and guess what they've already done? Yeah, they brought Dion on as a spokesman. In fact, it's that obvious. I mean, who's the most high-profile guy battling urinary incontinence today? Well, it's definitely Deion Sanders. Who are the most famous adult toy enthusiasts in American society? This is so hard to do without getting in trouble. The WNBA. Exactly. There's a beautiful partnership that would happen if you people would just stop being so sensitive and you would drop your walls and just be vulnerable and enjoy life for 5 seconds. Number one, you'll be happier. I'm happy about this. You're all, oh, this is inappropriate. You need to get them out of here. I'm laughing. I'm enjoying life more than you are. Secondly, you're missing a beautiful opportunity here, an obvious opportunity here. This is like an elephant size. This is Hannibal coming over the Alps with 35 elephants or whatever it was. And I'm not making fun of the size of these women or whatever. They're fantastic athletes. But also the constituency that happens to be concentrated in people who are either in the WNBA or, love sports in general, and the people who need the services of similar toys, which they were saying it was big. I'm not compared to me, obviously. But calm down, have a sense of humor, and take advantage of the situation instead of being offended. And you'll enjoy your life a whole lot more, ladies. And not all ladies, just the ladies that were watching this game. Oh, I'm so offended. Stop it. All right, coming up next, the economy is rocking along. The Federal Reserve decided they're not going to cut rates today. I guess that means they think the economy doesn't need it. Another big number came out today. The GDP was positive, just like we were talking about yesterday. And so how does this affect your money? You'll hear from Wilson Beaver, Heritage Foundation, about economy and Russia and Ukraine and all kinds of actual important news besides what's getting thrown on the court at the WNBA. That's all coming up next on The James Show. News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Well, hey there. Welcome to the James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. I am your host, James Parker. Still a lot coming up on the show today. We got to talk about the economy next. We're going to hear from Mark Levin, who's going to be a guest on the James Show. So a lot of fun stuff. Stick around. But right now we're going to talk to, from the Heritage Foundation, it's Wilson Beaver, who's going to help us. He does a lot of defense budgeting, NATO policy at Heritage Foundation. And Trump and Putin don't seem to be getting along anymore. And now there's been a new peace deal deadline. Is this going to work? If so, how is this different than every other deadline that Putin's faced? Hey, Wilson. So do we know what Putin wants? What could we give him that would make him stop? Now that's interesting. What else could could Trump do if Russia doesn't make a deal for a ceasefire within the next 10 days? I remember people saying that 2-3 years ago, but here he is still able to carry on despite sanctions and being told that, well, we're going to choke him out with sanctions. Would more sanctions actually choke him out, or can he just keep this going as long as he wants? All right, we're talking with Wilson Beaver from the Heritage Foundation. This new deal with the EU includes a whole lot of energy spending and defense spending, and I believe both of those are of concern for Russia. Every barrel of oil they buy from us, they're not buying from Russia, and most of the military equipment they get from us is going to at least be aimed at Russia. So this trade deal seems like a big chip in the Ukraine-Russia war. Well, if Russia believed that, wouldn't they come to the table immediately? Well, Wilson Beaver, I appreciate the insights from a guy at the Heritage Foundation. How do we find your work outside of WBAP, sir? Thank you very much. Coming up next, economic talk. You know, if it was bad news, it would be in the headlines, but it's good news, so you got to hear it from me on The James Show. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Well, hey there. Welcome back to the James Show. News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. I am your host, James Parker. And I think part of what makes me a good talk radio host is that I'm a little brother. So I really enjoy pestering people who deserve it. I had a lot of practice on my poor older sister growing up, but it translates pretty well into being a talk radio host because I have a memory that's longer than a goldfish. And one thing that you and I both learned from Rush Limbaugh was the drive-by nature of the media to not tell the whole story. And one of the things that I always found so compelling about his show is he would circle back to stories that happened 6 months ago or 3 months ago or a year ago. And it's more important to review a story than to look forward and predict as part of your story. Do you see this every single year? Whoa, the National Weather Service says the number of hurricanes predicted for this year is going to be above normal. We're looking for an above average season. It's going to be pretty catastrophic. We're talking about billions of dollars of damage. No. What you should be doing is saying, hey, right now we are 2 months into the hurricane season. Is it more or less than the dire predictions that we saw 2 months ago? Oh, really? It's under that? No headline for that, though, even though it's a more accurate statement. Even though you were told there would be a whole lot of hurricanes over the next few months, now that the few months have passed and there haven't been as many storms as promised, they haven't been as catastrophic as promised, which story's more accurate? Which story's better journalism? So I don't just do this to gloat either. I do this to prove a point. When we look at the economy rocking along, did you hear yesterday's show? Because yesterday's show was predicting half of what just was what came out today. Because the big number that came out today was the gross domestic product number. The GDP number for the second quarter came out positive. So that means several things. If you're new to economics, this is how we measure if an economy is growing or shrinking. And if you have 2 quarters, that's a 3-month span. If you have 2 quarters in a row where the GDP is negative, you consider, well, that's a shrinking economy. It's therefore triggers the layman definition of a recession. And I remember what was predicted earlier this year. Let's go back in time. Let's go way back in time. Let's go all the way back to January. And the great Jasmine Crockett was predicting a recession. Oh, I'm sorry. This is February 19th. Of this year. She saw what was going on in the economy. She saw what was coming up with the tariff battles. That was already starting. All that talk was already starting. We're already starting with the Doge cuts. People were getting laid off left and right. And Jasmine Crockett looked at the lay of the land and predicted that there would be a recession, that 6 months later, we'd have 2 quarters of negative GDP growth. That got disproven with the number today.
We are not in the business of giving out money. And honestly, I don't know what $5,000 will do for you if you are unable to find a job, because I am telling people we are headed towards a recession because the United States government is the 15th largest employer in the world. And so firing those that work for the federal government isn't going to necessarily create new jobs in private industry. In fact, Southwest Airlines, based in my district, just announced for the very first time in its entire existence that they are doing a layoff of approximately 15% of their workforce. If you pay attention, the signs are there. And I'm not telling you to be an alarmist. I'm telling you because I want to be honest with the American people. And my background, believe it or not, I was a business major, and none of this looks good for us right now.
Now, I don't want to just gloat and say, ha, I was right, you were wrong. Ha, Scott Bessent was right, or Kevin Hassett was right, you were wrong. I also want to point out, I'm glad that she was specific, because she was saying you can't just lay off hundreds of thousands of people from government and have them expect to find new jobs immediately. Well, hang on a second. Now, we've just proven that that can happen. You can lay off hundreds of thousands of people from the federal government, and GDP won't be negatively affected. Now, why is that? Now, you were already wrong in your prediction of a recession, so maybe you should listen to the other side that got the prediction right and learn this lesson. Government workers do not add to the GDP. Government workers do not create wealth. For every government worker that's getting paid, resources have to be confiscated from the actual productive people in society and used on this government worker. Now, if that government worker goes away and these other people are allowed to control the resources that otherwise went to the government worker, it was spent in a more productive, judicious, with a higher return on investment path, then yeah, the economy benefits. In fact, if you want the economy to grow even more, maybe we should fire even more government workers. I don't just want to prove her wrong. I want other people to see this and realize, oh, well, if that's wrong, then I need to change my worldview in this specific line of thinking. Because a lot of people can understand the metaphor of the economy like pulling on a wagon. Just imagine there's like a big chuck wagon, like in 1883. And me and you and Garrett and a few Bruce, we have ropes and we're out front and we're pulling on the wagon. For every government worker, you're taking someone off the ropes that's pulling and you're putting them in the wagon. Now that's just more of a burden I have to pull because now this guy isn't doing anything productive. Now he's not pulling the wagon. He's one of the people being pulled by the wagon pullers. And so when you take people out of the wagon, whether they start pulling or not, things get easier. What would be more ideal is if they got out of the wagon and started pulling, which a bunch of them have already done, because you're not just going to sit around for 6 months being unemployed. If you can find a decent job, that's probably better for your prospects. So let's learn the lesson here for the people who predicted recession. What did you get wrong? She specifically said you can't fire all these people out of government and expect the economy to grow. We just proved that wrong. Now, can you adjust your economics accordingly? That would be fantastic to actually not just have to have this goofy little big brother or big sister, little brother fight. How about you adjust your economic worldview a little bit so you don't get it wrong next time? Coming up next on The James Show, Mesquite has had 2 fatal shootings involving 15-year-olds in the last week. You heard that correctly. 2 different shootings involving 15-year-olds and a 16-year-old. It's the weirdest coincidence, but my takeaway is we've got to start charging these parents with something. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Hey there, welcome to the James Show. No, this is not Iconopop. This is the James Show. I'm James Parker, News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. I find it so strange, even being in the media for this long, on what stories get attention that you have to hear about for years and years and years, and some stories seem equally tragic, but they get reported on once and, again, never revisited by the media, again, with the drive-by media scenario that we were all taught by Rush. But in this one caught my attention. The reason I'm bringing it to you is because it happened twice in the last week. And it happened in your backyard. It happened in Mesquite. Mesquite's not that big of a town. So for Mesquite, this one neighborhood, this one town, to have two shootings, fatal shootings involving a 15-year-old, where I believe the 15-year-old was pulling the trigger. Wasn't it in both of them? See, the details are real sketchy. We don't know a whole lot about it because they're juveniles. And so the newspaper, the TV stations, the police, they rightfully hold some of that info back. But it doesn't happen in certain neighborhoods, but it happens, I don't want to say frequently, more frequently than it should in other neighborhoods. Now, if you're concerned about the well-being of the communities where this is more prevalent, wouldn't this be a huge news story? Wouldn't this be worthy of blocking a highway? Wouldn't this be worthy of some sort of protest or making a foam core sign and y'all organizing on a Saturday or Sunday? Or we have 15-year-olds here. And one of the stories, a 15-year-old shot a 15 and a 16-year-old. And this is like overnight. This isn't at 3:30 in the afternoon. And then a couple days later, pretty much the same story. A 15-year-old and a 16-year-old got in a shootout. And I think there was another 15-year-old involved. Now, this makes my head swim for a couple of reasons. Number one, what 15-year-old is capable of shooting another human being? Wow. Number two, what are they doing out overnight all night? Now, I'm not going to tell you I was an angel. I've snuck out of the house when I was a teenager too. Didn't go on a shooting spree. It wasn't because I was engaging in a life of crime. Usually just want to go throw toilet paper in someone's yard, right? Pretty innocent stuff. But the other angle, and what I want you to sort of mull around in your head is, where's the parents? Can't we charge them with the crime? I'm not asking what the parents, because what about the parents because they're bad parents? Obviously, they're bad parents. But, you know, we've seen a couple of these stories where the parents get in trouble for a kid that went on a shooting spree. It happened in Michigan. Some guy it was a school shooter, wasn't it? So the parents got in trouble because this guy had mental issues and they didn't lock up their guns, and they pretty much gave him they recklessly allowed him to have access to the weapons that he used to commit these crimes. Well, what about right here? Do we not do it if it is within a certain community? Do we not do it if it's within a certain skin tone? What's the metric? What makes this an important story? Some stories so important and some of them not. What makes something that the media reports on for years on end? We still have to hear about the Parkland shooting. We still have to hear about the Uvalde shooting. Not to minimize it, but why don't we hear about these other ones too? Are their lives not as important? I bet you the families of the 16-year-old, the 15-year-old that died in the last week, I bet you they think it's pretty important. But I kind of like the idea of going after the parents for crimes that the kids have done. And I think I surprised some people there because, I don't know, some people that were in Team Red media were thinking, well, this is clearly just being used for political purposes and yada, 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 whatever. I think that'd be interesting if we had the same sort of, fervor in going after the parents when we see, look, if they're too young to be charged as an adult, then the parents are culpable. There is an adult that's culpable. Like Carmelo Anthony going to be charged as an adult? Okay, no problem with the parents there. There's some adult that's being held accountable. It's going to be Carmelo Anthony. But for like these 15-year-olds, these 16-year-olds, are they even going to be charged as an adult? And if not, I think that's when you have to start roping in the parents. Now, this can get complicated real quick because, well, what if the parents aren't in the scene? What if the kid is the adopted by the grandparents? Okay, well, whoever's legally adopted them, they're on the hook. But for those of you who are just staying with your grandparents and your mom's still your legal guardian, she's on the hook. Well, that's not fair. What about dad? What if he's not in the picture? Go find him. Put cuffs on him. Well, I mean, you mean to tell me like just because you get some lady pregnant and you move 5 states away and now you're working in California that you're going to be held culpable for what your bastard kid does in Mesquite? Actually, yes. That's exactly what I'm saying. You know, we talk about how can we incentivize the nuclear family, the creation of the family, having it stick together. And one of the ways is have their negative consequences be attached to these people for the actions of their bastard kids. This guy would have an incentive to not move 5 states away, to be a part of his kid's life, to help raise him. Why? Because if that kid messes up, it's on him. It's his responsibility. But for now, what's the incentive for dad to stick around? If that kid messes up, well, then that's just on the victims who are on the receiving end of the gunshots in Mesquite. That's not very good. See, this would have a great effect on not just crime and not just punishing people after the crime, but preventing these little monsters from being created in the first place. If mom could go to jail for things that her little thug kid did, and other women in the community saw that, well, maybe they'd be a little more judicious about reproduction. Maybe they'd be a little more choosy. Is this going to be a guy who sticks around? Is this going to be a guy who moves up to Minneapolis after he keeps getting arrested in Texas, like George Floyd? This isn't just about the punishment. This is about creating the societal incentives for better behavior that would reduce crime for everyone. The number one predictor on whether or not someone will grow up to be a criminal is whether or not they're born in wedlock and raised by their biological parents or not. And so it's not just about punishing the people who took the life of a 15-year-old in your backyard in Mesquite. It's about setting up the rules so fewer of those monsters are created in the next generation. And that's why I think it's so important that we've got to start throwing charges on these parents. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Well, hey there, fellow Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM, WBAP. I am your host, James Parker. Shocking news that kind of bothers me how easy it's glossed over, how, some murders or some shootings or some deaths get national attention. If it's the one that happened in Manhattan at the NFL, or at least intended to happen at the NFL headquarters this week, we've all got to talk about that for a couple days. If it's a shooting that happens or a killing that happens like Carmelo Anthony, Austin Metcalf, we're going to be talking about that every step of the way. But some of these other people, they die. No one cares. That bothers me. I think murders should not be glossed over. Each life loss is a tragedy, even if it happens in a bad neighborhood or to a demographic that experiences violent crime more so than others. Kind of bothers me that some just get swept under the rug, never to be revisited again. And, I didn't really feel that strongly about this until I had a producer for a previous iteration of the James Show. He worked with me in both New Orleans and in Waco. He's a black guy. And when his dad got murdered when he was a kid, the news reported on it one day, never to be revisited again. And that kind of bothered him. They never had a fundraiser. They never blocked any highways. There were never any protests. Benjamin Crump didn't show up. Dominic Alexander didn't show up. The local iteration of whoever the community blacktivist is, they didn't show up. No one cared. No one made T-shirts. We didn't have the 1-year anniversary. There wasn't any statements from the mayor. It wasn't talked about on the radio or TV. Nothing. And so what he was pointing out, because Trayvon Martin happened when he was working with me, why does this guy's life get riots and parades and all kinds of attention, but his dad didn't? I don't have a good answer for that. I don't think anybody does, other than narrative. It's all political. And more important than the meaning of life, more important than each life is precious and each life is a gift, each lost life is a tragedy, more important than that is their fealty to politics. Gross. So my comeback on this is we'll make some people care. 15-year-olds in Mesquite, we're going to have 2 of them shooting up the place and killing people. We've got to start holding the parents accountable. I'm not just griping, I'm offering solutions. Parental accountability. Your thoughts. This is Tom in Plano. You're on WBAP.
Bub, you're absolutely right, and I couldn't agree more. I mean, aren't you as a parent responsible for the well-being of your kids, the feeding, the housing, the clothing, or any crimes that they had? I mean, I was raised by a single mother, guns in the house. We were taught right from wrong, and there were consequences for our actions. And we were taught that if you do commit a crime, that I have to pay as your parent. I don't know if that was the law, but that's how we were raised.
Well, I think that is the law in some instances. If you went out and you were a 15-year-old and you walked across the street and you threw a brick through your neighbor's window, wouldn't the parent have to compensate the neighbor? Couldn't they be civilly sued or something to that effect? So, we acknowledge it in some facets of our society and even in our legal system. But for, situations like this, mom and dad, I don't know what you would call it, accessory to murder or reckless endangerment, or there's got to be some legal statute that could apply here. And I'm not even sure if we have to pass any new laws. We've already seen parents be held accountable in other situations. I just think we need to do that a little more broadly. And,
enforce the laws. Yeah, enforce them. And of course, if parents were responsible for their children, they wouldn't be out at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning at 15 years old.
Well,
it's not a black thing, a white thing. I mean, it's a human thing, and it's a human life that was lost, and we put no more value on it. It's just like everybody showed up for the guy in Frisco that murdered a kid, but the attempted murder out at Wilmer Hutchins, where's that at? Oh, he got a slap on the wrist. And a lot of these kids know, as a minor, what are you going to do? You're going to give me a slap on the wrist, and then when I turn 18, guess what? There's no record.
Yeah, ollie oxen free.
Yeah.
Well, and then also, like, some of these aren't even murders. Like the illegal immigrant that ran over someone and killed him, or was it 2 people on the lake over here? Yeah, it was two people, wasn't it? Yeah, no one circles back to that. I mean, that's the loss of life. Are these lives not as important as a George Floyd? I mean, we burned down cities for 6 months over some fentanyl addicted loser, George Floyd. Yet a 15-year-old gets ignored. You're ignoring children getting shot in the street. It's pretty gross, media. Pretty gross double standard you have there. Do better. Chris in Mesquite. Oh, actually, someone from Mesquite. Your thoughts on WBAP?
Well, you're on the right track with the narrative. I live in Mesquite and have for a long time. The area where the shooting happened, if you look at it, 15 years ago was a very upscale neighborhood in Mesquite. In 2008, when the housing crash happened, the city of Mesquite decided upon themselves to open up that neighborhood to all the free housings that were there and turned it into Section 8. So you have a neighborhood where if you buy a house, the house is worth $450,000, and 1 in 3 houses in your neighborhood is Section 8. The schools are run with it. The city is rampant with it. I have a daughter that teaches middle school 2 blocks from where the shooting happened. And she's not allowed to do anything to these kids. She sends them to the office when there's a problem, and they come back with a lollipop and a soft drink. So they know that nothing's going to happen. You can blame parents, you can blame everything, but really the problem and the reason you're not hearing about anything in the news is because how's the city of Mesquite going to defend that they took a neighborhood and turned it into the ghetto?
Few people have destroyed the standard of living of the lowest in society as much as housing and urban development. Few people. Did you know that they've torn down more dwellings than they've built? The Department of Housing and Urban Development. I mean, it mimics what every giant department that's not in the Constitution ends up doing. The Department of Education takes affordable, high-scoring academic system, makes it almost impossible to afford. Student loan debts through the wazoo, and we're dumber than ever. Same thing happens. Housing and Urban Development. It was the worst thing. The neighborhoods that they control in every major American city is the worst neighborhood in every. It's the most dangerous. It's the most rapey, drug-riddled, violent crime, theft, car theft, auto theft, carjacking. It is the worst place. Stepping on needles, stepping over poop. Why is there any pushback when I say we need to just repeal all of this? We've just got to get rid of giant swaths of the government that have already screwed up our society.
Let me go one step further and tell you how crazy it is in Mesquite right now.
Tell me.
A half a mile from this neighborhood, there is a brand new development called Solterra. The average median price in that home in that neighborhood is $500,000, and you are half a mile away from 1/3 of your neighbors being Section 8.
Well, no one's going to buy that.
They're buying them right and left because they're not broadcasting it. Mesquite does not broadcast that this is out there. You have to do your own due diligence to find out, but usually it's too late.
Wow. All right. Well, thanks for chiming in from Mesquite and giving us a look on the ground. Appreciate it, sir. Good report from Chris in Mesquite. Hey, you like going to the movies? There's a lot of good ones out there right now. Jurassic World, Superman, F1, the movie. How about you go to Look Dine-In Cinemas? If you want to try and get some free tickets off of us, you can win a pair of tickets to go to Look Dine-In Cinemas in Bedford and Arlington. Text the word LOOK, like the name of the theater, LOOK, to 800-288-9227. You can get a chance to win a pair of tickets from us. So text the word LOOK to 800-288-9227. Coming up next on The James Show, we have the brain health coach coming on, Lee Richardson, and talk about what is going on in the heads of these psychopaths like the Midtown Manhattan killer this week. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM, WBAP. Well, hey there. Welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM, WBAP. I'm your host, James Parker. A lot of crazy crime stories been happening. Some of us are a little shook by seeing how cold and callous our fellow human beings can be and help us to understand the human mind just a little bit better. Dr. Lee Richardson's coming back on from the Brain Performance Institute. Welcome back, Lee. It's been a while, and it's a horrible reason to have you back on. But make some of this make sense. Let's talk about the guy in New York City that went and shot up what he thought was the NFL headquarters. He had a suicide note blaming CTE, just totally indifferent to murdering 4 of his fellow human beings. What do you see in this? Just a regular old psychopath? Yeah, I think a lot of that we can sort of see that happening in lesser instances and people who aren't necessarily crazy, but like it's something I've observed with people having political arguments on the left and right. The more they're challenged, the more angry they get sometimes, and myself included. And I like the way you worded that. It gives them a sense of power the more angry they are. Right. Okay. So give me your brain performance center take on what happened in Mesquite. And we've had 2 in the last week, 15-year-olds involved in fatal shootings. And for some of that, we just can't process it. When we were 15 years old, we were not capable of taking another human life. What is going on in the brains of these not even fully developed people? Well, it seems to be a different mental issue than the guy in New York City who's, these kids don't sound like they're necessarily psychopaths as much as they were otherwise normal kids who were put in a pretty traumatic childhood. Yeah, totally understand. Well, it was a good chat. Thank you very much for being on the show again. This is Lee Richardson from the Brain Performance Center here in Dallas. Appreciate your insights. Thank you. All right, coming up next, for the last two segments of the show, you're going to hear my interview with Mark Levin. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Hey there, welcome to the James Show on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. I am your host, James Parker. All right, joining me now, the great one, Mark Levin, and as a humble backbencher who's been in talk radio for a couple decades, is I got to tell you, you've earned the title because I've read some of your books. I'm not going to tell you I've read all of them. But I started with Liberty and Tyranny. I was working in satellite radio back in the day, and I got a free copy. I liked your show, and some of that language that you use has really stuck. I really have adopted your use of the term statist because I think that is a better descriptor of what we're dealing with here, and it doesn't come with the political stigma of calling someone a liberal or a progressive or a Democrat or a rhino, because statist applies to many people in the Republican Party too. And I've adopted that into my lexicon thanks to that book.
Well, thank you. Really, you can thank Aristotle, because I was researching and I saw he used the word which had never been used again. I don't know why, but it kind of does explain in one word what these people are. They're about a big state. They're about state controlling the individual, and that's status. But I do think beyond that, there are other nomenclatures as well as you develop through this process, like Marxists are status, fascists are status, radical Islamists in their own way, they're status too, and you and I and our audiences are not. And it's very, very important for people to understand beyond the superficial level why we're different. Because these battles that are going on, as I write in this new book on power, are battles over power. That's what they are. The Revolutionary War was a battle over power. Who gets to decide the fate of the individual and the civil society? The battle going on now with the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party is very much an alien organization in this country. It rejects the founding. It rejects the ideas of Montesquieu and Locke and the Entitlement and the Judeo-Christian belief system, which is laced throughout the Declaration and the debates at the Constitutional Convention. They reject all that. So I think it's important to explain that if you don't believe that the sovereign on earth here is the people, and if you don't believe in power checking power, these are the two fundamental differences between us and them, then you don't believe in America. It's that simple, because that is the basis of America. You don't have to be Jewish or Christian. You don't have to believe in God. But this is how the country was founded, and that's why there's tolerance and diversity, and that's why we believe in limited government, not overarching government. These are great beliefs. And we also embrace, as I said, the Enlightenment. That's why we believe in divided government and separation of powers, power checking power. The left does not. Von Mises said, you know who that is, the Austrian economist, great economist. He said, we all talk and think like Marxists now. We really do.
Oh, agreed.
Really do. Well, it's crazy.
Well, it's even more interesting when you point out the fact that we're against statist and statism. They sound like they're against it too, because when they say, so-and-so is a threat to democracy or Trump's a threat to democracy, they're worried about some authoritarian regime taking over. And they say they reject fascism, but they want government to control everything down to paper straws.
It's a very good point. I have a chapter in here called On Language. And what they do is what I call it's for negative language divided into negative and positive language. What they do is they proselytize, they sloganeer, they use propaganda, and their goal is to manipulate the public mind, to manipulate thought. They don't want free thinking people. They don't want knowledge challenging knowledge. They don't want open debate. They want conformity. And so they will use phrases. There's Trump, he's Hitler. You don't support Hitler, do you? That sort of thing.
Right.
They want to get rid of Social Security and Medicare, which, of course, they don't, but it doesn't matter. So they keep saying these things and doing these things as they must. So this is what they do, because they're not into the individual free will. Marx said that's all a disaster, because we're looking for this common best interest. They never talk about individualism. They never talk about free will. They never talk about property rights, because that all involves the individual motivation, that circle of liberty that de Tocqueville talked about around each individual that shouldn't be molested. They're molesting us all the time, politically and legally and so forth. And so listen to the Democrats. They're power hungry. They want power. This guy Mandami in New York, He wants to take over the distribution of wealth. He wants to take over the means of production. Well, what does that mean? That means the people who create things are the enemy. He talks about there shouldn't be billionaires. Why do I care if there's 1 billionaire or 1,000 billionaires? It doesn't affect my life at all. We live better today, Mr. and Mrs. America, middle-class America, than kings and queens lived in the 1800s. We have access to all kinds of food. We turn on a switch, there's light. We turn on a faucet, there's hot and cold water. We have air conditioning, we have heat, we have automobiles. We can fly in planes 40,000 feet in the sky while we're sipping coffee. We live the life that kings and queens couldn't dream of. Why do I care if a billionaire has 10 planes? So what does it do to me? Nothing. And that's the point. Their point is to create disunity rather than celebrate Americanism, celebrate capitalism, celebrate prosperity. They look for the imperfections in society, of which there are many, because we're human beings, imperfections, and they blame it on the system, they blame it on the status quo, and then they promise to create something that's impossible because they never require you to compare something to something. It's always compare an imperfection with a promise.
We'll continue with Mark Levin coming up next on The James Show, News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM, WBAP. Hey there, fellow Texans. Welcome back to the James Show on News Talk 820, 93.3 FM, WBAP. I am your host, James Parker. We're talking with the great one, Mark Levin, who you can hear on WBAP after the James Show every weekday. And your new book, On Power, just came out this week. Why this topic and why right now?
This topic, to me, I probably should have written about 20 years ago, but I didn't think about it properly. I don't think most people have. There's a lot of books on power, but they're mostly about psychology, and family situations, and so I'm not doing any of that. I'm doing it in the sense of the civil society, the founding of what types of governments we have around the world, why we have different types of governments, because I don't think we're arguing our case effectively. I think we're hitting it superficially. Like I said, when you really think about the Revolutionary War, what was it about? People say, well, liberty, and okay, that's fine. Liberty without rights means nothing. Liberty without rights means nothing. Rights without power don't exist. And so power is the bottom line. The battle we have in this country now is the same battle we had at its founding over power. And that's why people need to understand what the Declaration of Independence really is. It mentions God in different ways 4 times. Doesn't mean you have to even believe in God. I'm telling you how our country was founded. It mentions these natural rights, eternal truths, unalienable rights. Why? Because it's making the distinction between man and God. Now, it also creates a situation in which we embrace, I said, the Enlightenment. How do we know this? Jefferson tells us, others tell us about the Enlightenment, who they read, who they listened to. These guys were really well read, and they thought a lot about these things, which is why the left always attacks them. And they want individual spirit. All these things are crucially important. So when somebody comes in and they're 33 years old and they just had a big wedding in Uganda, and they're telling you how to rejigger human beings, how to re-engineer society, because the war is on society. The war is on the culture. The politics will follow. These are the people who are the most dangerous. And even Montesquieu says, people who do things because they feel they're righteous or they feel they're virtuous and they won't stop doing them are the most dangerous people on the face of the earth, because they actually feel these sort of totalitarian things that they're promoting are righteous and virtuous and good, and there's no boundaries to them. That's a Bernie Sanders. That's a Tlaib. That's AOC. That is these people. They always have government programs, redistribution of wealth. It's government, government, government. Never about, they don't promote anything that promotes liberty or competition or free speech. And the pandemic was a perfect example in blue states and blue cities of what these people are capable of.
We're talking with Mark Levin about his new book, On Power. Who is this written for? I really have a problem with the idea that some of the people who need to read your books the most will never read them.
I don't expect them to, and I'm not going to read their books either. They're not the people this is aimed at. It doesn't take a supermajority of people to change a country. It takes people who are well-read, who understand, who have ideas to promote it. This book is written for people to talk about at the dinner table, at the breakfast table. This is a book for people who are looking for answers. How do we confront these forces? What do we do? Ideas not only have consequences, ideas determine what kind of life you're going to live and what kind of society you're going to have. It's all about ideas. So if people don't want to write books, we have the audio. We've made it as easy as possible for anybody. But you can't force the left to read books like this. You can't force people who are inclined not to read it. But you'd be amazed. I get a lot of calls about minds that have been changed who read my books, who listen to the radio program or watch the TV show. I never know. There could be a great leader, a great group of leaders among them. So ideas, when we say, what are we going to do? These people are never going to read it. Well, that is surrender. What are we supposed to do? We got to keep fighting. We got to keep pushing our ideas. They do. They control our colleges and universities. They control K through 12. They don't worry about controlling a majority. They just worry about controlling enough. My attitude is get the word out, push against it, and you never know. There are Thomas Jeffersons out there. There are Thomas Paines out there. There are Ronald Reagans and Donald Trumps out there. And there's, of course, our audiences out there. They are listening. They care. They have families, and they can speak. And that's tens of millions of people.
Well, maybe the next book idea should be Mark Levin, I dare you to read this, liberals.
Yeah, well, that'll sell about 12 copies.
Right. I would just like to see how you would word it different if you knew the target audience of your book was someone from whatever various shade of Team Blue.
I don't write for Team Blue. I write for people who are interested in learning about a number of things. I don't understand. I write a book. I'm not preventing Team Blue from reading it, but I'm not going to write a book that caters to Team Blue because it's not going to be the kind of book I would write. It's the kind of book a leftist or a liberal would write. It's the kind of book, as a matter of fact, I don't even view it as Team Blue. I think it's worse than that. It's worse than the Democrat Party. This is an ideological struggle now. A lot of people aren't even Democrats. They call themselves democratic socialists. They're flat-out Marxists. This is a big battle that we're having. So it's not to me as simple as they're Democrat, we're Republican. It does devour the Democrat Party. They've bought into this, but it's bigger than that.
Oh, I agree with all that. It would be real hard to continue being a progressive liberal Democrat in 2025 after you've read Liberty and Tyranny.
Well, that book had a lot of impact. That book came out around the same time as Tea Party did, and you saw the impact that the Tea Party and the book had. If you're asking me why in the end game doesn't turn out the way it turns out, I'm not Nostradamus. I can't answer.
I hear you. Well, do you have an idea of what your next book's going to be? I'm sure you've got like 8 topics you're juggling here. But...
No. I love this book, not because I wrote it, but because I know every syllable in it, and I did write it. What I mean is I don't love it because I wrote it. I love it because what turned out to be the book. And I really think if it's not my best, it's certainly one of the best. It's a heavy book, yet it's easy to read and understand. The topics are heavy, but I wrote it in a way where people can digest it. They don't have to struggle through it. And I think a lot of light bulbs will pop up. They even did when I wrote it. I said, gee, I never thought of it that way before.
All right. Well, Mark Levin, I'm a huge fan. I thank you very much for your time coming on the James Show, and people be sure to catch him if you don't already. He comes on after the James Show every day here on WBAP, and be sure to check out his new book, Mark Levin on Power. Thank you so much. Great one.
Brother, God bless you. It was either that or Mark Levin on drugs, and since I don't take drugs, I couldn't write that. Thank you, James. You're a good man, buddy.
Thank you, Mark. All right. Now, if you want to hear more Mark Levin, just sit tight. His show's coming on in about 10 minutes. But listen, if you've never read one of Mark Levin's books, it's different than the show. It doesn't even, it sounds like the same guy, but he's not yelling at you in the book, and he can get really deep on these topics. And if you're going to start with any of them, look, he has the new book on power. Sure. If there's someone in your life that, has a birthday coming up and they're a Mark Levin fan, that would be great. If you're a Mark Levin fan, you would love it. But if you've never gone through his books before, I've only read 3 out of like the 9 he's written, but I would start with one called Liberty and Tyranny. It's a conservative manifesto, and it reads like a manifesto. This is what I believe. This is why I believe it. And this is how my worldview is exhibited through. And then he goes through some of the biggest issues of the day. The other one I really liked from him was the Liberty Amendments, because, Liberty and Tyranny kind of set the stage on his philosophical background, why he believes what he believes, through the Enlightenment and Adam Smith and all this other stuff. And then the Liberty Amendments applies that to modern society. It doesn't just come up with a bunch of grievances and theories and philosophy. Actually has some solutions, how he would fix so much going on there. And I haven't read the new one yet because Garrett gave away my copy. But if I do, I'll let you know if that one's awesome too. I'm sure it is. But you can find Mark Levin's new book, On Power. It's already everywhere. If you just search for it, it'll pop up on Amazon or whatnot. But stick around. Coming up, Mark Levin. In the meantime, if you want some more James Show action, I got the podcast floating around everywhere. You're already listening to podcasts. I prefer to go to WBAP.com or the WBAP app. But if you just go to your iPhone and you go to that icon that says podcast and search for the James Show, it'll pop up. Go find me. Share this show. Tell someone about the James Show. Help me grow this thing. I like this job. I want to keep it. I'm James Parker. This has been The James Show on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP.